Have you ever shared good news and felt the energy shift? The smile was there, the words sounded right, but something was off. Their eyes didn't light up, their tone went flat. That's not support, that's silent competition. Some people don't clap because they're proud of you. They clap because they feel forced to, while quietly keeping score, waiting for the moment they can one-up you. This isn't friendship, it's rivalry disguised as closeness. In today's video, we'll expose 6 subtle but powerful signs that someone in your life is secretly competing with you. These people don't want to become better, they just want to beat you. They downplay your wins, copy your moves, withhold praise, and spread quiet doubt behind your back. But the Stoic response isn't to confront, it's to see clearly, stay grounded, and refuse to be pulled into emotional games. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, it is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. So if you've ever sensed quiet resistance where there should have been celebration, this is your wake-up call. Watch to the end to sharpen your awareness and reclaim your emotional clarity. And if this video speaks to something real in your life, like it and subscribe to the channel. Let's grow without apology.
Number 1.
They downplay your wins. Have you ever shared something you were proud of, and instead of joy, you were met with silence? Or worse, a dry nice that felt more like an obligation than real support? When someone downplays your success, they're not being humble, they're being competitive. And the most dangerous competitors are the ones who pretend they're not competing at all. These people won't outright insult your achievements, that would be too obvious. Instead, they'll offer backhanded praise. They'll say things like, "Must be nice," or "You're lucky," as if what you've earned came easily, without effort, without the hours no one saw. But what they call luck was actually discipline. What they call easy was actually pain. What they downplay is what they secretly envy and cannot replicate. Their reaction isn't about you, it's about the mirror you hold up when you grow. Your progress forces them to see what they've avoided. Maybe they've delayed their goals. Maybe they've made excuses. Maybe they've given up entirely. And now your success feels like a spotlight on their stagnation. So instead of clapping, they flinch. That flinch? That's the first sign. Here's what the Stoics teach us in moments like these. Observe, don't absorb. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That includes being misunderstood, even by those who once claimed to support you. When someone minimizes your growth, it's not your job to argue, explain, or prove your worth. That's noise. You weren't made for noise. You were made for clarity and truth. And clarity means seeing their reaction for what it is, a reflection of their discomfort, not your value. Don't personalize their subtle jabs. Don't take their silence as a sign that you did something wrong. Take it as confirmation that you're moving forward, fast enough that it's making someone else question their own pace and perhaps their own honesty about what matters to them. This shows up in every kind of relationship. You'll see it in friends, family, even romantic partners. You tell them about a win, completing a project, starting something new, getting recognized, and instead of joy, they immediately turn the conversation back to themselves. Oh yeah? Well, I've been meaning to do something like that. Notice that it's not about you anymore. It's never allowed to be. Because if it stays on you, it disrupts the power dynamic they were trying to maintain without ever saying it out loud. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And that's the root of it. People who haven't struggled deeply often resent those who have. Your resilience makes them uncomfortable. Your success reminds them of what they never started. And your composure reveals their emotional chaos and lack of purpose. So how do you respond? You don't. Not with explanations, not with arguments. You respond by continuing, by growing anyway, By staying kind but distant? Watch what they say, but more importantly, feel what they do not say. True friends elevate you, competitors pretend to, but only when it's convenient or safe. Take Maya Angelou. When her first autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, was published, many people didn't celebrate her. She was met with judgment, resistance, even mockery. But she didn't shrink. She didn't tone herself down to fit their comfort. She kept writing, kept showing up, kept becoming more of herself. And her voice didn't just survive, it shaped a generation. She didn't need applause to know her work had meaning. The truth is, not everyone will clap for you, especially when your success challenges their sense of self. But your path is not a popularity contest. Your purpose is not up for vote. The moment you start dulling your light to make others feel comfortable is the moment you betray the very gift that got you here. Marcus Aurelius put it best. Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. So tie your worth to your discipline, tie your peace to your effort, and when the applause doesn't come, keep walking. You're not here to be liked. You're here to become who you were meant to be. And that, no one can downplay.
Number 2.
They imitate you. At first it feels flattering. Someone starts dressing like you, talking like you, picking up your habits. They even use the same phrases you use. And because you're generous by nature, you assume it's admiration. You think, maybe I've inspired them. But slowly it changes. They don't just adopt your habits. They try to become you. They tell your stories as if they lived them. They pass your ideas off as their own. And what once looked like respect starts to feel like invasion. There's a fine line between inspiration and imitation. And this line matters because one builds connection while the other erodes identity. A person who's truly inspired by you wants to become more of themselves, not a copy of you. But when someone imitates you to compete, they're not trying to grow. They're trying to replace. This isn't growth. It's mimicry fueled by insecurity. Stoic philosophy gives us a sharp way to see through this behavior, Epictetus warned us. If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in external matters. In other words, true growth doesn't need an audience, but the person who imitates you secretly craves attention, not evolution. They don't want to walk the hard path you did. They want the results, the image, the recognition, without the inner work. So they imitate because pretending is easier than becoming. You'll notice their pattern. The moment you do something new, take up a discipline, start a project, change your style, they're right behind you. Not in a way that adds anything new, but in a way that mirrors. A few weeks pass, and they're now talking about the same ideas, posting similar things, even quoting the same people you've been studying. They want the perception of progress without the solitude that actually creates it. This behavior is not neutral, it's strategic, because imitation in this form is not about appreciation, it's about control. They believe that if they can do what you do, faster, louder, more visibly, they can rewrite the narrative. In their mind, your originality becomes their shortcut. But the Stoics knew better. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, the fruit of this life is good character and acts for the common good. Not imitation, not comparison, character, which is something that cannot be copied, only built. And that's the threat you pose. You earned it. They're imitating what you have, but they're ignoring what you did. The hours you put in, the doubts you overcame, the silent mornings and long nights, the way you kept showing up, even when no one saw. Imitators don't want that process. They want your results. And when they can't catch up, they'll try to blur the lines between you and them. Because if people can't tell who did it first, they think they've won. Take the story of Ralph Waldo Emerson. His writing was so original, so rooted in self-trust, that it shaped an entire era of thought. But during his rise, many of his ideas were echoed, borrowed, and sometimes outright stolen by those around him. Emerson never fought them. He didn't waste time defending his originality. He simply kept writing, kept sharpening his voice, kept becoming more himself. And over time, those imitators faded because they had no foundation of their own. So how should you respond when someone starts copying you? First, stay grounded. You don't need to prove you were first. Let your depth speak for itself. Second, keep evolving. The fastest way to make a copy irrelevant is to grow beyond what they're copying. And third, don't let it disturb your peace. As Seneca put it, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. Let them crave your life. Let them chase your image. You, on the other hand, chase the truth. What they don't realize is that identity is not made through mimicry. It's made through confrontation, of fears, of doubt, of failure. You can't copy someone else's courage. You have to earn it through your own experience. And when someone builds a persona off your path, they're not becoming powerful. They're becoming hollow, because without self-awareness, even the sharpest mask eventually cracks. Remember this: they can imitate your style, your tone, even your habits, but they can't imitate your essence. That's forged in silence, that's shaped by choices no one sees, and that, your essence, is untouchable. So let them copy, let them chase shadows. You walk in the light.
Number 3.
They subtly compare but never compliment. They never say, "Well done." They never say, "I'm proud of you." Instead, the moment you share something positive, they pivot the conversation. You say, "I finally launched my project." And they respond, "Oh, I was going to do that too, but I've been too busy." You say, "I just finished reading this amazing book." And they reply, "Yeah, I read that last year." There's no pause to celebrate you, just a quiet tug to bring the focus back to themselves. This is not coincidence, it's a pattern. These individuals aren't wired to affirm, they're wired to compete, but not openly. They don't shout, they whisper, they don't argue, they redirect. And the moment you start noticing the pattern, you feel it. Every time you rise, they subtly reframe your moment as just another stop on their own imagined timeline. That's not support, that's disguised rivalry. The Stoics taught us to pay close attention not just to what people say, but how they say it, and especially when they say it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." Likewise, the feedback of those who won't honor your growth is noise. And when someone constantly shifts attention back to themselves, even in small ways, they're showing you their priority. And it's not your joy, it's their ego. What makes this kind of comparison so deceptive is that it doesn't always sound negative. They'll say, "I've been thinking of doing that too," or "I had the same idea," as if they're aligning with you. But the effect is clear. They don't let you have the moment. They can't sit in your light without trying to cast their own shadow next to it. And it drains you, slowly, subtly. True support has no need to compete, Seneca said. Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. Yet when someone never offers simple acknowledgement, it's not forgetfulness, it's intentional restraint. They see your progress, but instead of celebrating it, they compare it. And comparison, when left unspoken but constantly practiced, becomes a silent form of rivalry. You might try harder to gain their recognition. You might think, maybe if I explain better, or share less, or tone things down, they'll finally respond differently. But they won't, because it's not about the details, it's about the dynamic. The truth is, they see your success as a subtraction from their own worth. And the only way to restore balance, in their mind, is to recenter themselves. And here's what's even more revealing. They seem to compliment others, but not you. They cheer for distant acquaintances, praise celebrities online, and applaud achievements that don't threaten them. But when it comes to you, the person closest to their status, they go quiet. Why? Because your progress challenges their identity. It disrupts the story they tell themselves about where they stand. And instead of rewriting that story, they choose to withhold. This isn't just emotional immaturity, it's fear. Fear that if they give you your moment, it somehow steals from theirs. But what they miss is this. Greatness is not a limited resource. There's no shortage of space for people willing to do the work. Only a shortage of those willing to be honest about their envy. Take the example of Oprah Winfrey. As her career rose, she didn't just gain fans, she exposed people. Some friends became distant, others grew competitive, but Oprah didn't chase their praise. She built anyway. She celebrated others without waiting to be celebrated. She chose expansion over validation. That's what Stoic resilience looks like, not needing the applause to keep building the foundation. So how do you handle these subtle comparisons? First, stay aware. The moment you notice it, you take back power. Second, don't confront. Detach. You don't need to demand compliments or balance the emotional scale. Let them keep their silence. Let them keep their mental scoreboard. And finally, turn inward. Focus on your intention. Are you growing for approval or because it's aligned with who you're becoming? As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So when someone can't offer support, don't react. Observe. Your reaction feeds the cycle. Your silence breaks it. In the end, their inability to celebrate you says more about their fear than your worth. They fear irrelevance. They fear being left behind. But your path is not about comparison. It's about becoming. And becoming doesn't need permission.
Number 4.
They only compete with people close to them. Some people don't want to be the best. They just want to be better than you. They're not chasing greatness. They're chasing proximity. And that makes them dangerous. Not because they're more talented, but because they're fixated. Not on the world, not on excellence, but on you. They're not trying to rise. They're trying to outpace, and the competition only exists inside their mind. They won't measure themselves against giants. That's too intimidating. Instead, they measure themselves against people in reach. People like you, friends, siblings, co-workers, the ones who walk beside them, not above them. Because in their mind, if you shine too brightly, they disappear. This kind of hidden rivalry is rarely loud. It shows up in subtle changes, a shift in energy when you achieve something, a backhanded compliment when you share good news, a sudden silence when you grow too fast. They don't want to win on a global stage. They want to beat the person they sit next to. And that obsession has nothing to do with your path and everything to do with their self-worth. The Stoics warned us about the danger of comparison, Marcus Aurelius wrote. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. And what do they crave? Superiority, not improvement, not wisdom, just the temporary thrill of being one step ahead of you. That's why they mimic your pace. When you're stagnant, they're comfortable. But when you start evolving, reading more, building discipline, rising quietly, they feel pressure, not inspiration, not admiration, pressure, because they were never rooting for you. They were watching you, measuring, judging, and waiting to feel superior again. You'll notice they don't compete with people out of their league. They don't envy world-class performers or visionaries they'll never meet. Why? Because those people aren't threats. They're too far away. But you're near. You're a mirror. You're close enough to challenge the version of themselves they've settled for. And so, without declaring war, they silently begin to resist your growth. And here's the paradox. The closer they are to you, the more intense the competition becomes. Why? Because your growth threatens their sense of normal. If someone they once saw as an equal suddenly levels up, they no longer feel safe in their mediocrity. Your presence becomes a reminder of their unrealized potential. And instead of rising with you, they feel exposed. This silent discomfort often turns into passive resistance, sarcasm, withdrawal, or subtle sabotage, not out of malice, but out of internal discomfort. This isn't about evil, it's about fear. Fear of being outgrown, fear of being irrelevant. And rather than grow with you, they begin to pull back or pull you down. They joke about your routines. They mock your new standards. They roll their eyes at your clarity, not because they hate what you're doing, but because it reminds them they're not doing it themselves. Take the story of Leonardo da Vinci, not his rivals in the royal courts, but his relationships with other artists in his own city. Some tried to emulate his style, others quietly competed, releasing similar work at the same time. But da Vinci didn't waste energy chasing comparisons. He retreated into focus. He let the depth of his process speak louder than the noise. He didn't compete, he created, and that's why he endured. So what do you do when someone close to you turns your growth into their scoreboard? You stay on your path, you stop trying to explain, you don't shrink to make them feel safe. You outgrow the dynamic, not with aggression, but with clarity. Their need to compete is a reflection of their inner instability. Your refusal to participate is a reflection of your peace. As Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. You can't control who feels threatened by your progress, but you can control whether you slow down to appease them. And the answer is you don't. Because the more you grow, the more you'll realize. Not everyone wants to walk beside you. Some want to walk in front of you. Others want to pull you behind, but very few will walk with you without trying to win. Let them compete, you create. Let them measure, you move. Let them obsess, you outgrow. And in the end, they won't remember who won. They'll remember who kept walking.
Number 5.
They withhold support when you level up. In the beginning, they were your biggest cheerleader. When you were struggling, they listened. When you were just starting out, they clapped. But now that you've grown, now that you're doing well, they go quiet. Their enthusiasm fades, their energy shifts. Suddenly, they're too busy, too distracted, too indifferent to celebrate what once would have made them proud. This shift is not random. It reveals something deeper. They were comfortable when you were small, because when you were small, they felt big. When you were lost, they felt wise. When you were unsure, they felt stable. But now that you've stepped into clarity, now that you've outgrown the old version of yourself, the dynamic has changed, and so has their support. The Stoics warned us about false attachments. Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. And the opinion that people will always support you if they once did. That's a painful illusion. Some people were never truly rooting for you. They were rooting for the version of you that needed them. Now that you're rising, they feel left behind. But instead of being honest about that discomfort, they withhold. They ghost you after big wins. They stop engaging. They don't acknowledge your progress, not even in passing. Because to recognize your growth would be to admit that you've outpaced the role they assigned you. This withholding is not always loud. It's rarely confrontational. It's quiet, passive, but you can feel it. The silence after you share a milestone. The disinterest when you speak with pride. The absence of words where there was once praise. These people haven't stopped watching you. They've just stopped applauding. And here's where the Stoic mindset becomes crucial, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself. Receive without pride, let go without attachment. You must learn to let go of the version of someone who once clapped for you. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. People change, dynamics shift, and not everyone is meant to cheer you on forever. Consider the story of Michelle Obama. As she grew into her voice, not just as a first lady, but as a leader in her own right, she experienced this shift. Not everyone in her circle was comfortable with her evolution. Some became distant, some stopped acknowledging her impact. But she didn't shrink. She didn't beg for support. She kept showing up, kept growing, kept using her platform for something greater than applause. That's the Stoic way. Don't chase support, build regardless. It's tempting to wonder why they've gone silent, to ask what you did wrong. But that question is rooted in the assumption that your growth is the problem. It's not. What's happening isn't about what you've done. It's about what your progress reflects back to them. Your clarity reminds them of their confusion. Your drive highlights their drift. Your courage brings their complacency into focus. So what do you do when someone you once counted on starts fading just as you rise? First, don't internalize their silence. Second, stop performing for their approval. Third, remain open, but not expectant. If they return with clarity, receive them. If they don't, release them. And here's something most people miss. When support disappears, it's not always out of cruelty. Sometimes it's grief. They're grieving the version of you that made them feel needed, and your independence feels like rejection, even if you never push them away, but their reaction still reveals a hard truth. Your growth disrupted the emotional contract they were silently relying on, a contract where you stayed small and they stayed significant. And now with that balance gone, so is their enthusiasm. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And bravery here doesn't mean confrontation. It means choosing to keep rising, even when the people who used to cheer you on fall quiet. It means recognizing that real support isn't seasonal. It's spiritual. It's rooted in your values, not your victories. In the end, their silence is not your setback. It's your signal, a reminder to anchor your self-worth in your effort, not their reactions. Because the moment your joy becomes dependent on someone else's applause, you've surrendered your power. Let them withhold, you keep building. Let them go quiet, you stay loud in your purpose. And most of all, don't stop, because the people who are meant to walk with you at the next level won't fear your light. They'll expand beside you. Number 6, they gossip about you when you're not around. When someone can't compete with your growth directly, they attack it indirectly. And the easiest weapon they reach for is gossip. But this isn't the loud, obvious kind. It's subtle. It's dressed in concern. They'll say things like, "I just worry they're changing too fast," or "I don't know if this success is getting to their head." On the surface, it sounds like care, but underneath, it's erosion, strategic erosion. Gossip is the coward's version of confrontation. It allows people to undermine your credibility without ever looking you in the eye. And the more insecure someone feels about your rise, the more likely they are to plant quiet doubts in places they still want to control: social circles, shared spaces, mutual relationships. Because if they can't control your momentum, they'll try to control the narrative. The Stoics had a clear stance on slander. Epictetus said, "If evil is spoken of you and it's true, correct yourself. If it's a lie, laugh at it." Gossip then becomes irrelevant to the person anchored in virtue. But that doesn't mean it won't sting, especially when it comes from someone you once trusted. You see, when someone talks behind your back, what they're really saying is this: "I no longer feel safe saying this to their face." That's not strength, that's insecurity masquerading as power. Because it's easier to question your character in your absence than it is to challenge your presence. And here's the deeper truth. Gossip always reveals more about the speaker than the subject. When someone spreads rumors about you, they're not exposing your flaws. They're exposing their envy, their fear, their need to bring you down in rooms you're not even in. This is why Stoic discipline matters, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The gossip is an outside event. The slander is an outside event. And your strength lies not in fighting rumors, but in refusing to let them define your identity. Take the example of Nelson Mandela, not for his politics, but for his restraint. Throughout his life, he was mischaracterized, misunderstood, and falsely accused. But when he had every opportunity to retaliate, he didn't. He chose silence. He chose focus. He chose to let his actions speak in places his words would have been twisted. That is Stoic mastery, responding not with outrage, but with unshakable composure. And don't be surprised if the gossipers once called themselves your friends. Sometimes envy wears a friendly face, until it can't anymore. Their words start shifting when you're not around. Their tone gets sharper. Their stories get edited. Because now your growth reminds them they've stayed the same. And rather than look inward, they look for someone to blame. That someone is often you, but that's not your burden. It's their mirror. Now, when you realize someone you know is gossiping about you, it hurts. There's betrayal, confusion. You start questioning what was real. But you must remember, the person who gossips was never protecting you. They were protecting their control over how others perceive you. And when your light grew too strong, they responded the only way they knew how, from the shadows. So what do? You don't retaliate. You don't gossip back. You rise, you show up with even more clarity, more consistency, more peace. Because nothing threatens a gossip more than someone who doesn't need to explain themselves. Seneca said, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. That means no passive-aggressive posts, no dramatic exits, just distance, just elevation. Let them stay where they are, entangled in whispers. You've got work to do. You've got a life to build. And here's the paradox. The more silent you are in the face of gossip, the louder your truth becomes. The people who matter will see the contrast. They'll feel the difference, because energy never lies. And the ones who fall for the rumors, they were never truly with you. In the end, gossip is just noise. And you are not noise. You are rhythm, you are alignment, you are purpose in motion. Let them talk, you stay silent. Let them gather in circles, you move in straight lines. Let them hope for your reaction, you give them none. Because your peace, it's not up for discussion. If you've recognized even one of these signs in someone close to you, don't panic. Just pause and observe. Because the truth is, not everyone in your circle is rooting for your rise. Some are silently competing, some are keeping score, and some are only present when you're not a threat. But here's what Stoicism teaches. Your peace is not built on applause, and your purpose is not dependent on approval. You are here to grow, to evolve, to become, and that path requires clarity, detachment, focus. So let them talk, let them copy, let them fall silent. Your job is not to react, it's to continue. As Marcus Aurelius said, just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter. If you found value in this message, like the video and subscribe for more Stoic clarity every week.